Hi, welcome to Montreal. So this video is really a follow-up, if you like, to the video I did before on the in-room training. What I wanted to show you here was just really how I do my own in-room training, what I try and focus on when I'm away. So again, it goes back to this whole point. What we're trying to do is just maintain our training while we're traveling. So you might be doing a training program at home and then you travel and you don't really know what to do. So to give you a little bit of an idea, I have 3 different routines, if you like, that I try and follow when I'm away, and I try and mix and match them a little bit while I'm away. I use the high intensity interval training, which I made a few little clippets on Instagram about a while ago. I do some core work, which again I've uploaded some ideas onto Instagram of the sort of core stuff I try and put together. The nice thing about both of these is they don't take so much time. So the core work will last maybe 8-10 minutes. The high intensity interval training might be 15 minutes. The next sort of thing I really wanted to show you here was just some of the sort of all-round body strength training that I can do when I'm traveling. Just again to give you a few ideas of what you can try and put into your program. What I try and focus on, if you like, is trying to get a full body workout from a particular routine. So I try and look at something that involves pushing, something that involves pulling, something that works the legs, and something that works the core. So if I can pick an exercise for each of those categories, I can do a full body workout. One thing I mentioned before was the equipment I carry with me. So I've got a TRX, which is hanging up here on the door. The TRX is a gym in itself, and like I say, there's so many exercises that you can do with the TRX, but for me, predominantly, if I was to be perfectly honest, I do maybe 1 or 2 different exercises with it. But because it packs up so small, it gives me a really good opportunity to exercise the back. To give you an idea of a typical sort of full body workout I might do, I do something like push-ups, so you've got a pushing exercise. Now push-ups obviously work the chest, the front of the shoulders, the triceps. It's a great exercise, and I think one of the things that you just have to be a little bit careful about is there's a lot of stuff on the internet at the minute about push-up programs, a push-up challenge, do 200 push-ups a day for 30 days. And the push-up itself is a fantastic exercise, and there are loads of different varieties of push-ups that you can do. But what you have to bear in mind is just risk of injury. So if we look at the main injury risks, you've got number 1, a previous injury. If you've torn a hamstring, that area is going to be weak, and there's a good chance in the future at some point, if you haven't rehabbed it properly, that area will go again. The second risk of injury is an asymmetry. So what I mean by this is one side of the body doing something different to the other side, or the front being very out of balance to the back. And if we do constantly a lot of push-up work, but we never actually work the muscles in the back, we're going to create a situation where the front gets very strong, very tight, and ends up pulling the shoulders forwards, and the back doesn't balance it out by pulling it back. And the problem with this is it's combined with a lot of the postures that we suffer from. So we sit a lot, so we get a very poor posture from just sitting, whether it's in planes, cars, office, track if you're in Formula 1. On a mobile phone, we're like, how often are we like this? With our sort of really poor posture, and we do so much in our daily routine that reinforces a bad posture. And if you're then exercising those muscles at the front, it's just going to make that posture worse. It's going to pull everything forwards, and the joint that tends to suffer in all of this is the shoulder. The shoulder needs good alignment to work properly, and if we go back to sort of good posture, our shoulder's capable of full movement in all sorts of different directions. If our posture's poor, everything's coming forwards. Try and lift your arm up above your head. It anatomically doesn't go because the posture's bad. So what we need to be really careful of is just sort of this constant work on the chest. So that's why I like to include a pulling movement, hence the TRX, because it allows me to work the back with a horizontal row. So I'm going to combine a push-up variation, or just a normal push-up, with some work on the TRX to work the back. So I've worked both the front of the body pushing, I've worked the back of the body pulling. I then combine that with legs. So the legs would be, you could do some basic squats, and squats are just super easy to do anywhere. So you can either do a sumo squat where you've got your feet a little bit wider, you can do a standard squat where the feet are a little bit more like hip width apart. If you want to progress from the squat, a progression would be something on one leg, so like either a one-leg squat or a split squat or a lunge. And the reason I say this is a progression is when you're doing a squat, you've got a wide base of support. there's not so much balance required. As soon as you go onto one leg, the balance of, your base of support is massively reduced to 1 foot. So you bring in a lot of proprioception, stabilization throughout the hips and the body and the core whilst you're doing the exercise. So it's a lot harder as a challenge than just doing a normal squat. Again, with the squats, you're not likely to have any weight or equipment here to do the squats. So it's going to be body weight squats. So you can probably do a higher rep percentage. The other thing I then try and add is a core exercise. So again, there's numerous different core exercises, and with the core exercise I tend to play around with maybe 2 or 3 while I'm doing this. So it comes back to then how do you put all this together. So one way you can put it together, there's again numerous ways. You could, I look at doing something called hundreds. So I will look to do 100 of each exercise, and there's several different ways to do that. You can either split it down into 25 reps of each and do that 4 times. What I tend to prefer is working to failure, because I feel I'm leaving stuff on the table if I haven't worked to failure, if I still think I can do more. So the way I tend to set this up myself is I'll start with the push-ups. I'll do as many push-ups as I can in one go, aiming to do 100 before I finish. I then go on to the horizontal row. I try and do as many as I can on the horizontal row. I then move on to the squats. I'll do a certain number of squats, and then I go on to the core exercise. And I will just continuously go round until I've ticked off 100 of each. So for me, if I was to be perfectly honest, I'm a little bit better at the push-ups than I am at the horizontal rows. So I will probably complete the push-ups in 2, maybe 3 rounds. The horizontal rows will probably take me 4, and the squats, to be perfectly honest, because they're body weight squats, if you make them a little bit more explosive, they're more of a challenge. But this will normally be 3 or 4, because like I said, it just depends on the variation I'm doing. With the core stuff, again, it comes down to what core exercises you're doing, but I just count the reps and I mix and match 3 different core exercises until I've done 100. So that's how I do it. You could also, like say, do push-up, horizontal row, squat, core work, have a minute, 2 minutes rest, and then repeat. So it really just needs to fit in with the individual. What do you feel comfortable with doing? If you've never done any of this before, start low. It doesn't have to be called hundreds, it can be called 75s, it can be called 50s, it can be called 20s if you like. So you can break it down to really suit your level and create a situation where you then build up. You can either reduce the rest time in between if you want to progress, you can add a higher number of reps per exercise. It's really just endless what you can do, but like I say, the whole point really is just to do something in a relatively short period of time that works the whole body. So I'm going to have a quick look now at the exercises that I would do, just to give you a bit more of a practical example. So we've got the push-ups. Here I'm really just doing just a normal push-ups. Again, when we're doing the push-ups, we can add in different variations just to up the challenge. The next one is the horizontal row. So I'm going to get the TRX here. Again, to increase the challenge, we just make ourselves more parallel with the floor. If we want to make it easier, we just increase the angle. So we can play around with how difficult we make this exercise ourselves. The next one here is just the squats. Like I say, you can do a sumo squat, you can do a more sort of shoulder width version squat, you could do a split squat on the bed, you can do slightly more explosive squats. Again, it comes down to what you're used to doing or what you want to attempt or try and what you feel comfortable with, and you can gradually build up. You don't have to go for the highest level straight away. The last exercise here you'll see is just a core exercise, and I'm going to show you a few different ones here that I can put into this routine. So the first one is just in a low plank position. I'm just bringing my knees to my elbow on each side and bringing them back again. And again, we can vary this around a little bit. We can make it a little bit more explosive if we like. The next exercise is to be in a high plank position, and we can bring again our knees to our elbows, so it's a little bit like a mountain climber sort of move. Or we can bring the knee to the opposite elbow, which is a little bit more challenging on the core because we've got to get the knee across there. Or we can combine the two, so we can move our knee to the elbow in front, then cross over the body and come back. So there's several different variations we can play with here. When it comes to the order of things, what I've shown you today is doing the push-ups first, the horizontal rows second, the squats, the core exercise at the end. Again, when it comes to training, we need to keep the body guessing. The more we do the same thing with the body, the more the body gets used to it and adapts to it, and the quicker we reach that plateau. So to keep the body guessing, just playing around with the exercise in terms of the order will create a little bit more of a challenge for the body. So if you always do the push-ups first, start with the squats or start with the horizontal rows, mix and match the order. If you look at blood flow throughout the body, if we're working the chest, the blood's got to get to the chest to keep it working. If we then move to the squats, the blood's got to go back down to the legs. So again, it creates slightly more of a cardio effect. And with all of this, like say, as I said before, you can really just change the challenge to suit yourself. So that's a little example. That's what I would normally do as a more strength-based workout while I'm traveling. It ticks off for me every box. I've worked everything: pushing, pulling, legs and core. And you can play around, like I say, with endless exercises in this. Leave your comments below, leave your questions. I'll try and post a few more of these as examples in the future. I'm going to be putting a few more of the core exercises on Instagram, so check that out as well. And I will see you in France.